Hello and welcome everybody, I am Brandon, and we got a bunch of PlayStation demo news to talk about today. So from the sounds of it, PlayStation is going to be forcing some developers to make demos for the PlayStation Store with all this new changes coming to the PlayStation Plus service here in June. One of the incentives for the new PlayStation Plus service is that there's going to be timed demos for those who paid into that tiered service. And in classic PlayStation form, it sounds like they haven't bothered to even tell the developers at all, and we're hearing this via word of mouth. We got all that and more on another episode of Game Corner. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like what I do, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and I'll stop wasting your time. So as we've talked about many times on this channel now, PlayStation is making their new tiered PlayStation Plus service, and it's going to be launching here in June in the US. The new rebranded service is going to allow customers to download and stream PS5, PS4, PS3, PS2, PS1, and PSP titles over on their modern consoles. And as well as a slew of other features, it sounds like PlayStation is trying to force developers into creating demos for their service. And if you need the whole lowdown on all the rest of the features and services in this new tiered PlayStation Plus service, you can check out my other video by clicking up here. Anyway, another one of the incentives that you get by purchasing into this new PlayStation Plus tiered service is that there'd be timed demos for most games on the PlayStation Store. And don't get me wrong, we all like a good demo, except for when PlayStation is forcing their developers into making these demos for their PlayStation Plus service. The article over at GameDevelopers.com reads, Sony has begun communicating with developers about its plans for timed game trials for PlayStation Plus premium subscribers. According to sources speaking to Game Developer, developers working on games that have a wholesale cost of $34 or higher are now required to create time-limited game trials of their games. There is some flexibility as part of Sony's policy. Developers have up until 3 months after their game launches on the PlayStation Store to release their time trial. Trials are also only required to be available to PlayStation Plus premium users for at least 12 months. So yeah, this gets a little hairy as you can see, so hold with me here. So just to break it down a little bit here, Sony is going to be forcing developers who want to sell their game on the PlayStation Store, wholesaling the game at $34 or over, are being forced into creating a timed demo for their game to be put on the PlayStation Store. It does sound like they have about 3 months after release to get this game trial together, so it's not like they're forced to have that upon release or anything like that. But I'm definitely curious to know what happens if they don't have that up. Are they just gonna rip their game off the store, or what happens? There's still a lot of unanswered questions here, but we're gonna keep digging into this further. So in theory, I mean, this sounds great. PlayStation is trying to cultivate a bunch of time trials or demos for their games on the PlayStation Store and kind of create this big demo catalog for subscribers to play before they buy. I mean, that's just a big win for consumers, right? I mean, we've all been in that position as a kid where you could only afford one video game and you happen to buy the shittiest video game you possibly could, right? And then, you know, you're just totally stuck with that video game and there's nothing you can do about it, and you wish you would have gotten a chance to play that game before you had spent $60 fucking on it. Fuck you, Musashi Samurai Legend, you piece of shit! Unfortunately, this is where things start to fall apart a little bit for me. If you're a AAA game, I can totally understand having the time and the resources and the energy to put into creating this 2-hour timed slice of your game. But this could cause some serious issues for smaller games and developers who just don't have the resources to be putting into making a timed slice of their video game. And I mean, this doesn't even begin to touch on the fact that there are some games and experiences out there that only take 2 hours to beat, or not much longer than that even. So having this 2-hour timed demo that you're forced to create by PlayStation will be putting a pretty big damper on a game or an experience that someone could easily go in and beat during a timed trial. Basically allowing players to experience your game without you having to see a dime at all. And moving on with the GameDeveloper.com article, it sounds like many developers weren't even told or warned about this in the first place. Apparently only getting information about this at all once they logged into PlayStation's developer portal. Now, before we tear this apart too much, we should mention that obviously there's a lot of blocks you can put into your demo so that people can't go past certain points or do certain things within that time period. And on top of that, most people aren't going to just bulldoze through a game in a 2-hour demo, so Obviously, I do think that is going to be a smaller group of people kind of taking advantage of this system than people who are just, using it to try a game before it comes out. That being said, who is this affecting? What is $35 wholesale price? What does that equal out to retail? Well, that information is not very easy to get a hold of, unfortunately. Finding anything about what somebody like Best Buy pays for thousands of copies of Death Stranding or whatever is nigh impossible. But I was able to pick up a Polygon article back from 2017 that did go into wholesale pricing for small mom and pop shops, which could kind of give us a little bit of a lead in to maybe what games are going to be affected by this wholesale price. So as always, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Wholesale price is largely going to be affected by who you're getting these games from and what game you're getting from them. So while I do have some information about this, we're going to have to play a little bit of guesswork here. In our research of wholesale rates available to small stores in 2017, the lowest price we found for a new game that retails at $60 was $49. The highest was $59. The most fell between $50 and $55. So in a hypothetical utopia, a store could make $11 per sale. Obviously, we can assume that a mom and pop shop isn't going to be buying anywhere near the amount of games that somebody like a Best Buy or a Target is going to be. But even at these margins, we can see that AAA games are not going to be the only games being hit by this. At this point, I could even go as far to say that just about any game retailing over $40 is going to be hit by this easy. So now if we're looking at pretty much any game that's retailing over $40, that's a lot of video games. Everything from higher end indies to AA titles are going to be getting hit by this. And for a lot of these games, you got to keep in mind only a fraction of their audience who are actually buying the game are even going to touch the demo in the first place. Luckily, we did get a little bit more information kind of softening the blow a little bit here thanks to Nibble over on Twitter. It appears that Sony's own PlayStation Store team will create the 2-hour trials for developers. Article also mentions that this new policy hasn't been officially announced to third-party partners yet. So that obviously opens up a whole other can of questions here. If they have a whole team dedicated to making these demos, that could take a lot of pressure off of these developers who would have to get these demos together. However, there's still a lot of unanswered questions here. From the sounds of it, Sony has yet to even let third parties know that they're going to have to do this in the first place. Like we heard earlier, only some developers are finding out by logging into their PlayStation developer portal and seeing some information posted there. And on top of that, it sounds like they might try and further monetize this option, making this whole 2-hour demo team a team that you'd have to probably buy into if you wanted to publish your game on the PlayStation Store. This puts a lot of people into a sticky situation here. On one hand, if they end up walking this back, sure, it'd make the developers happy because they wouldn't have to put in the extra work or buy into PlayStation's demo team. And on the other hand, it hurt the consumer or the value that they're trying to place on this new PlayStation Plus service because you'd be losing out on one of the features they say is supposed to be included in their tiered system. I mean, game demos are great. I'm all for being able to try something before I buy it, especially with how expensive video games are. It would be nice to be able to play a 2-hour slice of something before I decide that I want to invest $60 in it. That being said, forcing developers into making demos is a whole other thing in and of itself. This actually isn't even the first time PlayStation has tried to do this. They actually used to have timed demos back in the PlayStation 3. It was a pretty normal thing. It actually used to work a lot like what it kind of sounds like they're trying to implement now, where you'd have this 2-hour timer that would kind of tick down once you start the game, and there would be walls that wouldn't allow you to go past certain areas in that 2-hour time trial. And PlayStation actually has a pretty long history with demos, believe it or not, so if anything, this is sort of a return of form for them, I have to admit. PlayStation Magazine used to hand out demo discs with each issue that came out, and back in the day, if you purchased a stuffed crust pizza at Pizza Hut, you would get one of a few demo discs that they were serving there. And for anyone who missed out, yes, it is as cool as it sounds. So as you guys can see, this is a pretty sticky situation. I definitely think you're gonna see PlayStation end up walking back on some of this stuff or creating some sort of team that can handle this without monetizing it in some way. As of right now, we're gonna have to wait and see. This hasn't even broken officially. PlayStation hasn't officially said anything to the public about this yet. Anyway, what do you guys think about all this PlayStation demo mess? Like I said, on one hand, this is great for consumers, and on the other hand, it sounds like PlayStation is getting ready for some serious backlash from developers. In my personal opinion, I think this sort of sounds like PlayStation is trying to get developers to make easy content for their PlayStation Plus subscription service. And it sounds like they're probably going about this in the wrong way. Like I said, I think you're gonna end up seeing them walk back on some of this stuff or changing how they're going about doing it. Anyway, I'm Brandon. This was the Game Corner episode on the PlayStation Plus demo debacle. Thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass week.